Hi, I'm Tom. This is Lucy, and this is Kitty Help Desk. So today, Lucy and I wanted to talk a little bit about mistakes. We all make mistakes. We're all human or feline. We all have made lots of mistakes in dealing with one another. That's just kind of a fact of being here on earth and being alive. I find that in some cases, there are people who work in cat behavior who want to judge you for the mistakes that you've made. And I just want to make it really clear that I've made all the mistakes that you can make with cats. Everything except for, physically punishing them. I've never done that. But pretty much everything else that you could do that is not the recommended way of doing things, I've done it, okay? I didn't have cats growing up. I grew up in a household where my mother hated cats and was very fearful of cats. And I'm not sure where that came from. My family was not very forthcoming about themselves. So she never talked about that. I just knew that she would react very negatively to cats, almost the way some people will react to snakes, like they're just terrified of them. And so we never had cats growing up. I did at one point have a couple of cats that I brought in because they had been dumped in my neighborhood. We lived out kind of in the country when this happened. I was in college. And these two kittens just showed up, and I immediately bonded with them. I thought they were awesome. But I was also very young, and I really didn't take full responsibility for these kittens. And I talked my mother somehow into letting me keep them outside and feed them. So they stayed out, and they came into the garage in the wintertime, and they got fed out in the garage, but they weren't allowed in the house. And really, at the end of the day, they weren't well socialized. So they really only would let me pet them. They wouldn't let other family members near them. So they were really just my responsibility, but I didn't take that responsibility, okay? And I feel guilt to this day about that because at a certain point, being a young man, I moved away from home. And the minute I left home, my mother gathered up those cats. I don't know how she did it, but she gathered up those cats and she took them to the shelter. And I believe they were probably euthanized because they weren't well socialized and they probably didn't react positively to other people other than me. And she didn't tell me about that until weeks after it happened. And to this day, I feel distraught about it. But every step of the way, I've learned really what we owe to those pets that we bring into our homes. And it's been part of what has driven me to do this job, to work with people to try to make their experiences with their pets better so that those pets will stay in their homes and not end up getting surrendered. And that the pets will live happy and healthy lives. All those are really important to me. But it started with that first incident. So the next cat that I had, and I used to think I was responsible. I guess everybody under the age of 25 thinks they're responsible when very often they're not because there are brain changes that happen at the age of 25. We are much more likely to indulge in very risky behaviors prior to the age of 25 when those brain changes take place. So prior to the age of 25, I made a lot of mistakes, and one of those mistakes was those kittens. Another mistake, it wasn't a mistake. I basically tamed a feral cat by very gradually over the course of a summer. His name was Simon, and I would offer him food each day on a sidewalk behind some apartments, and I would just move the bowl an inch or two closer each day. And over the course of an entire summer, he eventually came and sat in my lap. And then I brought him inside, and I had a girlfriend at the time, and it was at her apartment where I found the cat. And this cat wanted to continue to go outside because that's where he had lived for so long. So we just let that continue to happen, and then we fed him inside the apartment. And so then again, I left town. I went off to grad school. I left the cat with my partner at the time, and she took the cat in and she cared for him. And that really wasn't her job. She was very kind to do that, but I should have been more responsible. I should have decided either to take Simon with me and be fully responsible for him because I was the one who brought him in. It really, I can't explain myself, okay? There's no defense for that, except for being young and stupid. So then later on, when I was an adult in my 30s and I got my first, I adopted a cat from a cattery. That was Mina. And that was in 2007 in Los Angeles. And my partner then wanted a cat, and I honestly really did not want a cat because I think I still felt a lot of guilt around the other cats in my life, and I just hadn't done a good job with them. And so I really felt like all this has led to for me in the past is grief. So she eventually talked me into it, and we went, and Mina basically picked me out at the cattery. She basically came over to me and followed me around the whole time I was there. No other cat responded to either one of us when we were there, but Mina came and followed me around. So we, I think my partner really wanted a cat so badly that she was just like, any cat that I responded to positively, that's fine, that's the cat, So we brought Mina home, and Mina integrated into our household really nicely. And that all went fairly well, except for the fact that I was feeding her kibble all the time. She got wet food too, but mostly kibble from a plastic bowl that harbored bacteria. And she had like this water dish that harbored bacteria. And there were a lot of choices that weren't the best choices for her simply because I didn't know what the best choices for her were. So all of this is just to say, I totally get it. I know what that feels like. And there's nothing wrong with you, and you haven't made these mistakes on purpose because you didn't know. And at some point, we're going to have to really think about giving some sort of user guide or manual for cats with every adoption from a rescue, because there's just so many things to know about them, and so little of that knowledge is in sort of the conventional wisdom database that we all share, that right now, if you go online and you look up information, you see all kinds of conflicting points of view. And that's largely because cats have such drastically different personalities. And so what anecdotal information you read online might just apply to one cat or two cats or whatever is being mentioned in the post, as opposed to, someone who has knowledge of feline ethology who is going to advise you to sort of follow what all cats need and then adapt from that point, adapt down to your cat's personality. And that's what I try to do. I may not always be 100% successful at that because there are a lot of things that we simply don't know about cats because there hasn't been a lot of rigorous scientific study of cats to date. So far, most animals have been studied either from a biological perspective in trying to learn more about humans, or so that means they're studying animals that are more like humans. And, rats are very similar biologically to humans, as are primates. So those tend to be, kind of big choices. But they also, the animals get chosen according to what the profit goal is behind the study. Because when a company is funding a study and they have a choice to fund a study about dogs or about cats, most of them are going to choose to fund a study about dogs because the outcome of that study is going to produce better profit for them, because dogs go to the vet more often, dogs get medicinal coverage more often. There are all kinds of things that happen for dogs that so far in our culture, cats have largely been denied because they cover their ailments so easily, and we just don't notice that they need more vet care. So if you get nothing else from this video, just let me say, you really need, your cat needs to see a vet at least once a year. And if they're a senior, they really should see a vet twice a year. So, but that said, it's important that we learn more about cats. And the more we learn, the more on top of that knowledge cat behavior consultants can be, the more effective we can be at solving behavior issues for our clients, and also for adding to the conventional wisdom that's out there and correcting some of these misconceptions that exist. So, thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe, and I'll see you next time. Thanks.